As far as inspecting the wings for damage goes, beyond making sure they don't rot corner to corner and visually inspecting them, I really don't know what else you would do. That said, there's nothing wrong with them. And if this is what you find and the price is right and you rebuild the heart of your saw, remember, if you find other cast iron wings later, swap them out. Swap them out, put the cast iron on the saw you rebuilt, put the tin on the saw you just bought the cast iron wings for, give her a quick polish and sell it. Get your money back. Heck, maybe you do a little rebuilding like we did here, and you make a little money on the deal. Take somebody else's old saw, refresh it, pass it on to young blood. Speaking of cast iron wings, this is my General. This is a Sears table saw cast iron wing. Now it's the open web, which of the two cast iron wings is the lower of the two. You prefer the solid flat, but whatever, right? Here it is. This, all it took to install it on my General is re-drilling a few mounting holes. It was the right thickness and it was the identical length. I think these things are kind of standard. They're out there, right? And in that case, that saw was simply too far gone. It only had, I think, one wing, one cast iron, one tin wing, which probably means it fell over and got smashed. But regardless, yeah. So if you are stuck with tin wings, don't despair. Simply keep your eyes open. And as you find them, replace them. Here you can see the wing masked up for painting. And I'm just going to paint it a gloss black because that seems what most people would expect the table saw to be. And then if I have any white, I'll do the underside white. You're going to want to mask off the ridges. Otherwise, as you slide wood across it, you're just going to wear that paint off and it'll get on your projects. If you get overspray on it, don't worry, because you're just going to wear that paint off and it'll happen quickly. This should be the final act of our little play. Hopefully tonight we can get the wings on, the motor wired, and everything operational. It's snowing, Christmas is coming, got a whole bunch of other stuff to do. I'm ready for this project to be over. You can see how I painted the underside a light gray. I actually ran out of my cream color, but that'll work. A light gray to help with the, this is my favorite part, help with the light issues. That looks nice. Same protection as the main tabletop. I'll wax the whole thing. Let's get the other one out of tape and move on to the base. Taking a moment to inspect the base closer. That leg at some point is collapsed. Probably comes from dragging the saw. Well, actually, probably comes from trying to push the saw. They usually drag okay. Other than that, I get this plywood off of it. Maybe try to think of some way I could reinforce that. The legs appear straight. It's just this top is buckled. Well, let's strip the wood and extra metal and see what we have to work with. One thing I have noticed that needs repair is these feet. I hope I can get them off. Some missing bolts. It's really just this pucker right here. Nothing special in how I fixed the feet. What I did is I pulled them off, which was a pleasure in itself. I added this nut here at the bottom because the nut they had is actually welded to the foot. You can't get a wrench in there, so I extended it by adding that nut to the bottom and then big washers on either side, which as far as I can tell were never installed or never included. I should do a great job.
holding those feet together. That'll be fine.
She's finally starting to look like a saw. Getting excited. I figure it's been probably at least a decade since this thing was working, so this is some nice progress here. Looking good. Now we're going to go ahead and mount on those wings that I cleaned up. So I replaced all the bolts that hold the saw down to the legs with these that I found in my drawer. I might regret it later because they're kind of cute. Big old panhead things, but whatever. They're doing a job.
When you're putting it back together, just hang them. If you got cast iron wings, you can go ahead and align them at this point and torque them down, but these are aligned with the rip fence. It's really starting to look like a table saw. I like it. Now to align the wings, typically what I will do is I'll snug them up just enough that I can move the wings. Sometimes you have to smack them with your hand, but move the wings up into position and yet not have them drop back down when you let go. You just want to, put a little tension on it. You need a straight edge that you can lay across the top. I'll start with a front corner. I want it flush to the front and flush up and down, and I'll go backwards. And it's kind of, this case it is kind of like a little bit of a teeter-totter. It just takes some time.
If it rocks, you're too high. That's good. It's easier to tap it down than it is to push it up. Because these are the tin wings, they move like this. Once you have bolted on the rip fence bars, you'll probably have to readjust it. If they're the cast iron wings, you can't readjust them or they'll break. Those, you just line up here really well and call it a day. When it's time to align the rip fence bars, at least on this saw, the bars are even with or just slightly below the bottom of the crosscut way. Not above, obviously, because they'd be in the way of the saw. The back one is mounted flush. The front one is spaced out about half an inch or so. And then once I've gotten it bolted securely to the cast iron, I will then come out here and set this side up and down and bolt through it as well. Now my first saw had this exact same kind of rip fence. My rip fence, I sure remember it working better than this. It didn't slide at all, but I put a little wax right along both of these surfaces here, and it's better. But it's possible to lock this rip fence down and have it a good 1/8 of an inch off at the far end. You got like this double-edged sword with the wax, so it slides, it moves unless you torque the crap out of it. What can I say? It's just a real weak spot on this machine. So I'll have to advise the young man, when he's able to financially, well, that's better. Waxing that nut made it better. But he's able to financially, he really should look into a decent fence.
So here's how I did the electrical. Because remember what I said was their idea was a good one. It just was badly executed. So I have got an enclosed back, completely enclosed back plug end there. I have it tipped face down so the sawdust gravity-wise can't get into it. And I got a faceplate on it. And so now, I don't even know what that's doing. hanging out of there. I didn't end up touching the switch. I just sort of zip tied it together, and it's completely functional. And the young man will have to... He wants something better, he'll have to buy his own. But what happens basically is this outlet energizes when you flip the switch, leaving you an open port. It's not a bad idea. It really isn't. You could run a shop vac. Who knows what you might want to run off of that. Probably a shop vac. But yeah, so you got a sort of a built-in dust collection on-off switch. And the motor just hangs back there. So this just goes straight to the motor. So if you were to plug this in directly, the motor just comes on. But it's not a bad idea for a small shop.
Well, this should be fun. This is the first time this saw has cut wood. Who knows how long? That did not go well.
Oh, I knew it would be underpowered. But I didn't think it would be that underpowered. Sounds to me like that belt is screaming too. Well, they're 1 to 1. And it's turning at 3,400 RPM. That belt is, or that blade rather, that is awful damn fast. Well, it gave a reasonably nice cut considering that I had to pull it back and forth a few times. She could really do with another half a horse. Hell, I wonder what I got on the shelves. I think I have a 2-horse on the shelf, but I believe it's a 220 only. Well, the other option I have is to gear it down. I might pull that drive pulley off the motor. I believe we said it was a 2.5, so that's 1 to 1. Maybe I'll see if I can find a 2. I can't go larger on the saw because there's not room for it. So it has to be down here. Deary, deary, deary me. I was kind of hoping for a little more success in our first run, but it will work perfectly. I'll get it adjusted. I'll swap the pulleys. I'll find a bigger motor, and it will work perfect. It's sort of a test. What I've done here is switched over to a much smaller pulley. This is, I think 1.75 inches, 1.5 inches. It's not actually marked. Quite a bit smaller. I want to find out if it makes any difference. My prediction on this, it's not going to make enough difference. Watch that pulley closely when I do this. I don't know if it shows up on camera, but this belt here is substantially wider. Well, okay, so it's just fractionally, right? But I mean, it is a fair bit wider. So let's find out how it works now. My favorite blade, that orange CMT, and most of the vibration went away, so I think it could be that ugly blade. Gosh, you could still really do with another half a horse. I found that I do have a horse and a half, and I have a 2-horse on the shelf, both 110 220s, and then a third 220 only 2-horse. But the horse and a half is missing all sorts of startup circuitry, and I don't know whether I can cannibalize another motor or not. Well, I swapped to my, it left a pretty nice cut. See if I can get it. Well, anyways, that's the CMT, and that was that other blade. There's a profound difference. It's gonna need a horse and a half. And if I can't fix the horse and a half, then it'll need the 2. Well, here's the horse and a half I pulled off the shelf. I was able to cannibalize some parts. And obviously runs. WEG. Horse and a half, 3490. It's currently set up for 115. Compressor duty. I'm going to pull the other motor off. We're going to swap bases. I'm going to put that small pulley on this motor because that saw blade still turns too quickly. And we'll hope that the extra half a horse and RPMs will do it. Here's that motor bolted on. I had to move my plug in because I cut the wires too short. I forgot it tipped. But we're about to find out if this makes it any better. I have swapped to an even larger belt. It looks to me like this motor isn't aligned. Well, clearly it's not aligned quite right. So I'm not sure what the deal is there. But it'll work long enough to tell us if I got to start the same process over with a 2-horse.
Oh, it starts much better. Hey, back. Good job.
It would be helpful, however, if it spun the right direction. I have to open the motor up and reverse the wiring. What can I tell you? When I did it, I kind of just had to take a guess. Like I said, missing pieces. Alright, it took a little tinkering, but I was able to figure out which 2 wires to reverse. And this motor happened to be 5 and 6 in order to reverse it. So, let's try it again.
Okay.
Ho ho! There we go. You could ignore this part because that's where I double cut it. We got a little bit of blade wobble up here. But, I mean, come on, that was almost at a full cut on a 4x4. Sure, it's slowed down, but I mean, come on. You'd have to step up to a 3-horse like the General in order to keep it from not slowing down. And that's just brute force. Why do you need that? So there we go. I believe we all saw together exactly why this poor saw was being dumped. Probably why it's so beat up. With that 1-horse motor on it, this thing was close to useless. The poor girl never had a chance. With that horse and a half, now we got a saw here. So, there it is. It's up, it's running. We took her back from the brink of scrapyard to a functioning tool. So what have we invested in this thing in the end? Well, I have $125 for the saw itself, plus that motor. Now that motor came from the scrapyard, and I doubt I have more than $10 in it. But let's go ahead and say you bought a brand new one. Let's say you bought a Harbor Freight brand new one, right? Because you're on a budget. So there's 100. So we're at $225 for this saw. Big wide table. You've got all metal, belt drive, everything you need. It's all upgradable. You throw on a better rip fence, all of a sudden this thing's in better shape.
You find the cast iron wings, it's better again. I mean, let's face it. What can you get for $2.25 in a home store? Why don't I cut to some? I'll go and I'll research some saws that cost as much as I have invested in this, and then we'll see what they look like and how they compare side by side. It's a fine machine. It is absolutely what I recommend if you're on a budget. And please, every time you save one of these old girls, you do the world a favor. I hope your project is as successful. I'm sure it will be. If you have any questions that I can help you out with, feel free to write me in the comments or maybe on Google+, provided that's still in existence. Others, there's lots of good advice from other people who have restored these saws. Read through the comments on all the different videos and compile all of our ideas, because I'm telling you, you've got to believe me. You will be happier doing this with an old beat up monster than you will be with that plastic fantastic. That said, it will always be a monster. And if you just need something you can throw in the back of a pickup, this really isn't your girl. Thanks for watching. Good luck.